So yesterday was supposed to be the date that Nancy Pelosi originally agreed, if you are watching this on release date, but even if you are not, into the future, there are going to be a lot of things that are relevant. But yesterday from release date that was the date that she originally agreed that she was going to officially try to bring the fourth stimulus package onto the floor in order to try to finally gain a vote and maybe approve. Now, technically by logic, there are actually at this point many things that they are trying to approve. So it's not even technically one stimulus package. There's many different parts of it. For example, again, as mentioned, is that you have obviously the fourth human infrastructure stimulus package, the fourth physical infrastructure, and then you have a lot of the other side bills like the funding, the spending, the budget, plans to basically raise the debt ceiling. But the idea is that sadly they had to end up postponing the voting for the fourth stimulus package. Again, I don't think this should have been a surprise. I did talk a little bit about that in yesterday's video, so definitely check that out if you guys need a little bit of a recap, although most of you guys saw it, so huge thanks. But what they did end up doing, maybe on great news, is that they did now officially approve of the government funding, but specifically the bill that, long story short, is needed to try to avoid the government shutdown, to now potentially now give them even more time to try to work out their negotiations. Now, obviously, I think it's very fair to say most of us would rather have the entire fourth stimulus package approved in its entirety. However, I do still think there is some positive silver lining news to it, and I do still think is that there is still some great news about it. But I think is that in today's update, even if you have already heard about the news about what's actually been going on, I really just want to talk about what's been happening, but even more specifically about the actual significance to what is happening actually means, or like on a much more deeper level, especially now going forward with all of the negotiations now continuing to happen. So we're going to talk all about that in today's update, but as always, maybe real fast before we begin, consider smashing the like button, or you can decide, at least we do still have the government funding part approved, and there is a huge significance to why this is important, so I'll talk a little bit about that later. And as always, consider subscribing, hitting the bell, and as always, feel free to comment any questions, thoughts, or personal about anything at all. So with that being said, let's get this video started. So the really great news, as just mentioned, is that they did officially end up approving the funding bill in order to keep the government running so that they can continue negotiating for the fourth stimulus package. Now, this is actually particularly significant because I do know, again, a lot of us probably would rather see the actual stimulus package approved, but there is still a lot of significance to this because first off is that if they did not approve of this funding bill, it is very likely is that this will now lead to even more delays when it comes to everything revolving around the fourth stimulus package and talks and everything. But there's an even greater significance because when a government shutdown ends up happening, I think that like the even greater important part of it is that it actually means that basically almost everything related to the government is potentially going to pretty much be impacted. So what this actually means for us is that it ranges from things that are as subtle as, for example, if you are someone that, let's just say, just enjoys government tourist destinations, traveling, parks, resources, it means those are going to be impacted. But probably even on a deeper level, I think, is that it also means that a lot of stuff related to, just simply put, doing things related to the government may now potentially end up being impacted as well. So examples of this would be things such as like food stamps, government programs, support services, Medicaid, Medicare, and even things like unemployment. So by basically approving of this funding bill, it means that now we officially have a little bit more time to be able to now sort out everything that's basically going on. I believe is that the most recent government funding bill that they just approved yesterday from release date is that they are now trying to approve it so that now they can keep the government running until I believe around December 3rd. So basically about 2 months from now, which is crazy. We're about to reach at the very end of this year. Crazy that it's been about a year since we've been talking about the second stimulus package. But the idea is that now we do have about 2 extra months to kind of work out. However, I don't think they are trying to take all 2 extra months. This is really just something to have them so that they have more time, because it's better to have more time than less time. But however, I do think is that they're trying to get it done as soon as they possibly can. In fact, if you are actually watching this on release date, the story is that Biden has actually now come back into Congress, and they are now trying to continue negotiations again. So if you happen to be watching this on release date, it is very, very possible that right now as we are speaking, they could literally be inside of Congress talking about it and continuing the negotiations. And I think the most important thing really is just the fact that at least they're doing something. I know obviously we want to see things officially stamped, but I think the big thing is that certainly if you compare it to last year, where there were just consistent stalls, vacations, people, putting things back and forth and all that kind of stuff, at least we are seeing, especially after yesterday, where they literally sat down for several hours and they basically at least put some level of effort into trying to make progress to now go forward with everything related to just stimulus, government programs in general. The other really big important date actually is that even though they've actually officially approved of the government funding, there is a lot of talks, especially according to Janet Yellen right now, that they believe that there is a chance that the government is still at the very end of the day running on a very, very tight budget. So because of that reason, there is a lot of uncertainty to how the finances are going to play out. It's very, very similar to how even for just people or just things or businesses in general, sometimes you might reserve a certain amount of money for just, let's say, survival reasons, but at the end of the day things can sometimes change. And especially when you talk about the government, where there's so many moving parts and things that are happening, such as like international news, you guys probably already know about it, feel free to share any comments, things that are happening internationally, domestically, of course around the fourth infrastructure, but even things outside of that. The big thing is that there's even a prediction that they may run into a lot of tight budgets right around even the 3rd week of October. I believe is that they specifically predicted October 18th, so that is probably another big important date to know, because they don't know what their financial situation is going to look like there. So the big idea is that even though they do have the funding until December, there are so many important dates between today and there that because of that reason, we are basically following the news and trying to see how they're going to be working through a lot of the tight deadlines. But maybe the silver lining is that hopefully it will basically give them a little bit of a sense of urgency to actually now try to get things done. And it's even more true because you are seeing it again, because right now on the day of release date, they are in Congress talking as we are speaking. So at least there's something that's physically happening. And I think that's the bright, more promising side to it. There is also, interestingly, a lot of belief, and I know actually technically this is what Nancy Pelosi did express, so this isn't just from a word of mouth, this is actually from what she also communicated, is that she does have backup plans that she's hoping to implement to try to get things done. So there are subtle plans that are happening on the side, basically as a backup if anything were to particularly happen. However, what has not yet happened is that they haven't actually released what they physically are. So we don't exactly know what they are, but that is definitely something to kind of stay tuned for, to definitely kind of look out for. When we hopefully do get more information, we'll definitely be able to share it. If you're brand new here, maybe consider subscribing so you guys can, get updates when that hopefully does come out. Of course, you guys can always feel free to consider or decide if you guys want to. But because of everything that's going on is that the big idea to really know is that there are several ways that this can end up playing out. At this current time, it seems like they're probably going to hold firm with what they particularly want. So what I mean by this is that what the progressive Democrats want, what the more moderate Democrats want, what the Republicans want, and then all of the different independent people, it looks like everyone is trying to hold firm to what they want. So the very, very likely outcome from here is that one side will have to either eventually cave and give in, and it happens all the time. For example, with the third stimulus package, eventually Joe Manchin was originally hesitant to do it, but eventually, thankfully, he ended up caving in and finally approved and agreed to it. And that's how we ended up getting all of the stuff with the third stimulus package, like the $1,400 stimulus check, the third unemployment benefits, and the third child tax credit, all of the different programs that was part of it. So the idea really right now is that either one side has to eventually just give in, or the other potential likely outcome is that it is very probable that they may actually end up just trying to now create a whole new stimulus package. This side is something that happened with the second stimulus package when they were kind of running through so many negotiations, and then what ultimately happened at the end is that they just ended up writing a whole brand new package. So likely is that one side will either have to cave, or they may potentially have to do a whole brand new package. But right now at this time, hopefully maybe we can eventually just get something approved. And I do believe, and it is believed by a lot of people, is that these negotiations will likely continue even into next week. So with every single date and lots of news coming out, we'll definitely have to kind of stay tuned for that. But beyond this, that's what I really just wanted to share in today's update. So if you guys found something insightful, maybe consider smashing the like button. It's always greatly appreciated. Consider subscribing and hitting the bell if you're interested in getting similar videos, especially because there are so many things and so much information that we are now waiting for. What they end up deciding, does it end up officially getting approved, what they do with unemployment, stimulus, the child tax credit, different programs, how things end up playing out, if they end up trying to combine the bills, separate. The idea is that there's just a lot of question marks that's happening right now. So definitely consider subscribing if you're interested in that. Feel free to comment any questions, personal thoughts, or information, or honestly just really anything. So that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys are watching this on release date, happy Friday, have a great weekend, and hope to see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much again.